Well, hello again. There are a few more things that I wanted to say or try and express as best I could. There's two topics I want to talk about. I'm going about it in a bit of a long way, but one of the things I spoke in one of the videos that I've made about isolation, and I said that sort of families were maybe trying to keep a lid on it, kind of by keeping people sort of isolated. And my sister said, well, absolutely, that's not fair. People in with mental health difficulties tend to isolate themselves and bring it withdraw from society, and bring isolation on themselves and withdraw from society, and don't want to join in things and stuff like that. And she said it's not the fault of the relatives always, and I do agree with that, but sometimes I do think that the general sort of stigma surrounding it sort of causes people to want to withdraw. I mean, another alternative were if all the people with mental health difficulties in the world were to get together and form a group. I mean, I was thinking about the recent sort of disability cuts. I've got some sort of pics from New Internationalist on Twitter showing sort of loads of people protesting, now disabled people protesting outside Parliament, and I was thinking, well, what would happen if a group of people with mental health difficulties got together all in a big group and started protesting about it? Not not just people with physical disabilities, but a lot of people got together who had mental health difficulties. And I spoke to I spoke about this to a group of us who met in town, like a service user group, and they were saying, oh yes, but we'd all get sectioned. They'd all think that there was something wrong with our mental health. They'd blame our mental health. They wouldn't take us seriously politically. They'd say that there was something dodgy about it, or that we didn't know what we were doing, or that we lacked insight, or something like that. But I think, to be quite honest, it would be quite a threat. Like, if a really, really big group of people with serious mental health difficulties got together and started sort of swaying through the city centres as a crowd, protesting about things, then a lot of people might see it as a bit of a threat. And it led me to wonder whether some of this isolation is a political thing, and some of the stigma is actually an enforced thing, what sort of trying to prevent us from getting together and sharing our experiences and coming together as a force. I've on my blog, there's a video that I've downloaded for you to watch if you're interested, about deaf culture, and I've tried to draw a parallel between what it sees, they find a cure for deafness, and the deaf culture as a result is threatened, and there is something lost there. There's something about the humanity and the common struggles, and instead of deaf people becoming famous or becoming news readers or becoming policemen, I think one lad in the video wanted to be a policeman. Instead of that happening, the cure deafness, and really, like, everybody has to basically toe the line as some kind of robot, and a lot of that caring and sharing and helpfulness between people, and sense of community for deaf people suffers as a result, and actually completely disappears. And it strikes me that we have an opportunity like that within mental health as well, but we're not using it. that sort of everybody is just sort of alone with the mental health problem, and there is little encouragement for us all to kind of try and get together and try and make something positive, or like, I mean, and as well that there are so many people with depression, for instance, and wouldn't it be nice to dream about, maybe there are reasons they're depressed, maybe there are political and socio-economic reasons they're depressed, as well as personal reasons, that, I mean, I can't, I know that it's a big bunch of people we're talking about, and it would be difficult for all of us to get to agree on how we want to see the future. But I really do think that we ought to have a voice, and like that, it's definitely, things are happening. Some of the stigma, there's a lot of people working to try and take some of the stigma away, and I know that The Guardian are working particularly hard now to address issues around mental health and make it at the forefront of our consciousness, and I'm really grateful for that. And but there's a lot of people as well who don't have mental health difficulties, who are absolutely sick of the trudge of going to work and working at some sort of as they see it, fairly meaningless job, and coming home and not even, like, I suppose in the Blair and Brown years, we were sort of able to, people in that kind of situation had the fun of spending money afterwards, but like that's not really, we've seen through that. It's not just that it's gone away, but we've seen through that spend yourself out of depression kind of scenario. And I do think that we are now beginning to look to something else, and there are lots of alternatives that could be explored, but would mean a big change in the structure of things. Like if there was more, I hesitate to say more part-time work, because I know that doesn't bring in a proper income, and I don't know how that can be resolved. But it stands to reason that people have other obligations and other interests in their lives than working, and need some sort of balance, at least, of activities. And a lot of people, basically, that they're going to work and coming home late and watching a bit of telly. I don't know how people manage to unwind watching telly, really. And then that's, have sex and kind of go to bed, and that's it for the day. And they do feel, I think, as though they're not fulfilled. And there is more of a demand coming from people now to try and get their emotional needs, not just their mental health needs, but their emotional needs kind of met in a way that maybe isn't happening in society at the moment. I forgot what I was going to say now. I was going to say something else. Oh dear, I don't know how I'm going to edit this out as well. I haven't got the hang of this camera yet. I was going to say, oh yes, the Action for Happiness campaign, led by Richard Layard, is one example of this kind of trend. But there is like sort of a worry that in the end we may all be made individually responsible for our own happiness. We may not come together as a community. It may just be a load of apps that you have to try and get right your anxiety, or try and cure yourself, like a load of kind of non-hands-on, non-personal ways of, oh, you must deal with this, so that in the end it becomes more like a kind of robotic society, and maybe we're all on tablets that are the equivalent of, Soma tablets in Huxley's Brave New World kind of thing, to try and create a false sense of happiness. And there's no drive to try kind of change things or come together as a community. It could get even worse, and the Action for Happiness movement could go that way. It could actually, because of the tension between our need to keep growing as an economy and the happiness campaign, it may go that way. But I'm hoping it doesn't. And the only way that I can see it not doing is if there's a lot of pressure, really, from people with mental health difficulties to try and direct the way that it does go. Okay, that's it for now. Bye.